Contract circus mostly over for Liverpool as a generational talent signs a new deal with more to follow. An outfielder smashing into the wall at Zozo Marine Stadium early Wednesday morning, remaining in the hospital after the collision. And team and coaching news for several of the big players of the 2026 World Baseball Classic. All this and more on this edition of the International Sports Report. Everybody, and welcome to this edition of the International Sports Report for Wednesday, April the 15th of 2025. Lots of news coming from the worlds of baseball and soccer. And then we have a huge win for McLaren to talk about as Oscar Piastri dominates in Bahrain at Sakhir International Circuit. We got a little bit of a headless chicken hour going on at ISN this week. Happy Easter to those who celebrate, but it does make for a very busy week indeed. But without much further ado, let's get into your top stories to make sure that you are informed here this week. Our top story, we've covered it a couple times on the channel so far, but so far it does seem like this contract circus, as we've been calling it, is finished for Liverpool FC. One of the big three has signed a contract extension, and that is Mohamed Salah in a tear-jerking announcement video of his contract extension. He is declaring that the story will continue for the next 2 years. He is foregoing Saudi Arabia and an unbelievable amount of money to continue to compete with the best in the world in the English Premier League. And what a season he has had. He is showing no signs whatsoever of slowing down. 27 goals and 18 assists in the 2024-25 season, on his way to a Premier League title, the second of his career. It is looking very, very promising for the Reds. We'll get into that imminently. But the follow-up to that story after Mo signs is that Virgil van Dijk is coming close behind him in signing that new deal. We're expecting an announcement any day now, and if it does not drop before this episode airs, we will be updating you in the description of this video, and then giving you a full rundown on next week's show. Switching to the world of baseball, a scary moment in NPB between the Fighters and Marines earlier this Wednesday morning when this is being recorded. Fighters two-way player Kota Yazawa makes a really incredible catch at Zozo Marine Stadium in the 7th inning in the Fighters' losing effort to the Marines. But he laid his body on the line to make that catch. He careens into the wall, and it looks bad. Let me throw up the Nikon Sports image here so you can take a look for yourself. It's just not great, and you knew for the moment that it happened, he was in trouble. And fortunately, he stood up of his own power, even though he was taken off the field on a stretcher. He is currently in hospital, and we will be monitoring the situation. Hopefully, we'll have an update next week for you on his condition, but it is a good sign that he was able to stand up of his own power. But we don't really know with how much force it was that he careened into the wall. Finally, we stay in the world of baseball. World Baseball Classic 2026 news. Mark DeRosa has been the man selected to lead Team USA once again. He did a pretty good job of it. On his way to the final in 2023, he will be getting another chance in the upcoming 2026 Classic, and he has chosen his team captain, and that is Big number 99 for the New York Yankees. Aaron Judge is your new Captain America, and it's looking like he will be joined by Mike Trout for another tournament as the Angel legend presumably making his way out to right field, so Judge plays center. He says he wants to finish what he started, some unfinished business from the 2023 tournament, and that's fair to say considering how close they got to beating Samurai Japan, which, for that tournament at least, was a team of destiny. Pete Alonso also pledging his support for Team USA. We haven't confirmed this team selection yet, but hopefully we'll have an update for you next week. On the side of Team Taiwan, Rakuten Monkeys manager Sang Hao Ju will stay on to manage Team Taiwan after he did a terrific job, and they were challenging for a qualification spot. They achieved that qualification under Ju's leadership. He'll be able to focus on the 2025 CBPL season, but then shifting his devotion to the national team at the conclusion of this 2025 season to make sure that Team Taiwan has a deep run. A little bit of a disappointment for them going into the elimination rounds after pool play in 2023. Some really spectacular moments looking back in that pool, but considering how well they did in the qualifier, and that they knocked off Samurai Japan in the 2024 Premier 12, we might be looking at a different Team Taiwan at this rate. They will be intriguing to see. Finally, making his World Baseball Classic debut and Team Dominican Republic debut will be Fernando Tatis Jr. He has registered his name to participate with Team DR in WBC 2026, and if you've seen him play even once, you know the electricity that he brings to the table. DR looking to finish a whole heck of a lot better than they did last time around. Fernando will help them do that. So, those are your top stories for the week, according to us here at ISN, and without much further ado, we will get into the Games of the Week scoreboard right now. Let's see how everything played out in our ISN Games of the Week last week, in the week of April the 8th. Starting in England, 1-0 Everton, knocking off Nottingham Forest. Fair play to Everton, it pains me to say. They controlled the game from start to finish. Nothing really to show for it, but Forest fought an almost perfect war of attrition on defense, and it fell to Abdoulaye Doucouré to separate the two teams, scoring in minute 94. Those Blues really love to steal a game late. In the Netherlands, 3-1 Utrecht versus Groningen. Utrecht keeps the pace with a dominant performance. Goals from Soufiane El Karouni, Johan Kathleen, and Sebastian Haller. All in the first half. No clean sheet, though, as Stajia Resnik nips one for Groningen in minute number 32. Atalanta versus Bologna. A really good matchup. Redeguet and Palisic both scoring early in the first 20 minutes of the match for Atalanta to seal a huge victory to keep their place in the top three and keep pace with Inter. 2-1 Freiburg over Mönchengladbach. You have to pardon me, as I was so excited for this game, and it did not disappoint me that I didn't even notice that the Klassiker was happening, or that the Klassiker was happening in the Bundesliga last weekend, but I feel vindicated because these two squads put on a match that was much more interesting than this iteration of the Klassiker, because Freiburg knocks off Mönchengladbach 2-1. Gladbach gives its lead over to Freiburg, courtesy of an own goal from Christian Ginter. But Patrick Osterhage, equalizing for Freiburg minutes later. And then it's a dead heat for 75 minutes before Johan Manzambi finds the winner in minute 90. Takes a lot to be more interesting than the Klassiker, and this match did deliver. In our three baseball leagues, the Hiroshima Carp swept the Yomiuri Giants over the weekend. A dominant weekend for the Carp at Mazda Zoom Zoom Stadium. Friday game finishes 12-3. Masato Morishita goes 6 strong, striking out 8. Kaito Kozuno is broken out and is here to stay. 2 for 5 in that Friday game with 4 runs batted in. Shosei Togo took the loss for the Giants. Game 2 was a little closer, but the Carp still your winners, 1-0. Complete game shutout from Hiroki Tokara, 7 Ks and just marvelous stuff. He was untouchable. And finally, much more of a ball game in the rubber game, but Shohei Mori starts strong on the mound, leans on his bullpen, and they hold it steady until Ryoji Kurabayashi gets the save. Another 3-hit game from Kaito Kozuno. Also, Shota Suekane having a 5-hit weekend casually. Great series for him. Carp looking strong. In Korea, the Lions and Landers split a very good weekday series with both games going to extra innings. SSG winning yesterday. Andrew Anderson and Ariel Jurado have a good duel for 7 innings, but they take 1 run each. Bullpens come out and trade zeros until extra innings, until Ko Myung-jun finally breaks through on a sacrifice fly to score Jung Jun-jae, who led off the inning with a single, and then they get some insurance from Park Sung-han thanks to an RBI single that scored Guillermo Heredia. Visitors win 3-1 in Game 1. Game 2, another awesome pitchers duel through 6 innings between Won Tae-in and former St. Louis Cardinal Kwon Young Kim. Then both teams notch a run in the 9th. Choi Ji-hoon gets an RBI fielder's choice for SSG. Then Lewin Diaz ties it up at 2 for Samsung in the bottom of the 9th. It goes to the 10th at 2-2. Young Do-gyun is the hero in the bottom of the 10th inning with a single to the gap. Lions win 3-2. And then finally, the Guardians notch 2 out of 3 from the TSG Hawks. Guardians 4-1 Friday. Braden Hagens goes 6 strong for TSG, but no run support for the young man. The bullpen gives up 2 in the 7th and 2 in the 8th. Catcher Dai Pai Feng gets a 2 RBI triple, and Kung Ning En notches 3 hits and an RBI. Guardians win Saturday 6-3, 3 in the 1st and 2 in the 3rd. Legend Yu Chong going 1 for 4 with a 3-run bomb for Fubon, and 6 of 9 Guardians starters notching an RBI in that Saturday game. Hawks do get a game back on Sunday. They win that one 4-2. Tu Chao Ming going 2 for 5 with a home run and 3 RBIs. We take a look at our tables, beginning in NPB, a great weekend for the Carp, and they roll on through the weekend here, and into the midweek, they find themselves top of Central League, 8-5 Hanshin and DNA. The other members of the top 3, Yakult, Yomiuri, and Chunichi, rounding out the bottom 3. Giants have slipped up and fallen under 500. And the Orange Buffaloes, very quietly, 10-3 in a great spot in Pacific League. Fighters 2.5 behind them. Hawks 3.5 behind them, equal 6-6 at 500. But not only are the Lotte Marines, the Chiba Lotte Marines, not garbage on the year, neither are the Cebu Lions. We'll talk about them a little bit more imminently, but 4-5 for right now. And the Rakuten Eagles bringing up the rear, 4-9 in 6th place. In Korea, the LG Twins remain on top, 15-3. SSG, after a great run of games, find themselves 9-7, hanging on by a thread to second place in front of the KT Wiz, who are 9-8. Samsung in 4th, 10-9. Lotte 9-10. Just in front of Hanwha, who has catapulted themselves up into 6th place. Still early doors in Korea, a lot of games to play, and everything really likes to leapfrog there. But your bottom 3 for right now, NC, Doosan, and Kiwoo. Heroes really the only team that haven't really got much of anything going up to this point in the season. And if we predicted anything, it was that. CBPL, Dragons in front here in the first half after a marvelous run of form from Weichuan. Brothers just behind them, just in front of their rivals, the Lions, Monkeys, Hawks, and Guardians rounding it out. But the Guardians starting to come into their own this season. Going to the Premier League table, title could be decided this weekend. Again, we will be getting to that in our games of the week. The Reds of Liverpool in front of Arsenal by 13 points. No one has a game in hand anymore, but it is quite the sizable margin. A win against Leicester City and an Arsenal loss versus Ipswich will seal it for Arne Slot in his first season in control. Forest remain in the top 3. Newcastle breathing down there next, though. They are just a point behind them, 57-56. And City on the edge of the top 4 as well after they found a little bit of form, 55. Chelsea just behind City at 54. And Aston Villa equal with them. Even if the title is decided this weekend, there's still plenty of places to play for as we get near the end of the Premier League season. In the Netherlands, a similar story. 29 matches played. Ajax in front by 9 points on PSV. PSV, no more opportunities to take points directly off of Ajax. They do not control their own destiny, while Francesco Ferrioli's men do. Feyenoord behind them by 5 points. 3 of them are Utrecht, Twente, and AZ, rounding out your top 6 in the Eredivisie. No changes in the bottom 3 either. Willem II, RKC Waalwijk, and Almere City. Down there at the bottom levels in Serie A. Inter remaining on top. Only 1 win behind them are Napoli. 71-68. The point totals between 1 and 2. Atalanta behind. They are 7 points off of second place. They are pretty firmly in command of that third place spot, but we will see if the Bianconeri get on to a run of form. They might take that number 3 spot away from Atalanta. Bologna also holding steady in contention, but they are falling off. That loss to Atalanta was a big one. Venezia, Empoli, and Monza, your bottom feeders in Serie A. And finally in the Bundesliga, 6 points ahead for FC Bayern Munich. Leverkusen behind them by a little bit, and then the gap between second and third is quite sizable, but still a lot to play for between Eintracht Frankfurt and RB Leipzig. Holstein Kiel, FC Heidenheim, and VfL Bochum are your bottom feeders in the Bundesliga, which leads us nicely into the games of the week for the week of April the 15th of 2025. In England, it is Leicester versus Liverpool, the ISN Derby. Myself's and MG's 2 teams battling it out. It is Foxes versus Reds for the Premier League title. It is, of course, if Arsenal loses to Ipswich. If they do not, it will be put off by 1 more week. But still all to play for this weekend. Date on that is 11:30 a.m. this Sunday, Easter Sunday, April the 20th. It's any consolation to MG, though, I will likely be in Easter Mass, and as the Mass is happening, I probably will only be able to catch the ending of the match. We will have to see. In the Netherlands, Utrecht versus Ajax, 1 versus 3. Any moment now for Ajax. They keep winning, and they will take the title the minute PSV slips up. This will likely be their toughest test to close out the season, because they had a great comeback win thanks to goals from Oliver Edvardsen and Wout Weghorst off the bench to turn a tide against Willem II. In Italy, Inter versus Bologna, 1 versus 5. Bologna dropped a spot after their defeat to Atalanta. Now they will take on the presumptive champions, and their defense are going to have to deal with the unleashed forces of Marcus Thuram and Lautaro Martinez. And they're going to need to be ready, because if they are not, this one is not going to be pretty. Times for those noon on Easter Sunday on Paramount Plus for Inter and Bologna, and 6:15 a.m. on ESPN Plus for Utrecht and Ajax. Finally, for football, we go to Germany. Mönchengladbach against Dortmund. Top 3 all battling relegation zone clubs at this point in time on this match day. So 7 versus 8, this should be a good scrap. Mönchengladbach looking to rebound after their loss, and Dortmund, after drawing with Bayern, will likely try to carry on some decent league form. We'll see how their match against Barcelona plays out midweek as well. In baseball, the weekend series in the CBPL, Hawks and the top-ranked Dragons duking it out. Looking quite nasty, rather. After a huge series win against the Lions last weekend are the Dragons. They've won 7 games so far at the time of recording. That is your weekend series in CBPL. 1 versus 2 in Korea. Landers, a very, very hot stretch after a weekday and weekend series split with Kia and Samsung. They should win this series against the Eagles during the week. Their bats are mighty, and their starters had the lethal combination of sharp stuff and strong endurance. They will take on the leaders of the standings right now in the LG Twins, your weekend series in KBO. In NPB, chosen to go to Poly League here. Top of that league are the Oryx Buffaloes. At a time of recording, Oryx has taken game 1 of the series between themselves and the Lions 2-0, and they've quietly won 11 games this season. Top of the Pacific League, they're facing a Lions team that, get this, does not look unbelievably hopeless this year. They blasted the Hawks a weekend ago, and there may yet be some promise for Cebu. They will have to win this series, though. We shift to the world of F1 now. A dominant performance from Oscar Piastri in the, let's be real here, number 1 McLaren at the Sakir International Circuit in Bahrain. A great start from the beginning, just some aggressive movement to push his way through on all of the challenges that he had in the opening lap, but he earned pole in qualifying, kept pole throughout that race, deserved that pole in qualifying, and in a similar performance to Max Verstappen, in my view. He just looked like he was in control from start to finish. A dominant first place victory for the Australian. He gets his 2nd of the season after he won in China. His teammate Lando Norris having some really significant control issues, and obviously he got slapped a little harshly. It has to be said. Yes, I know he started a little further over the line than you're supposed to, but I don't know. You can call me biased for McLaren all you want, but well done to Lando for getting the most out of a drive that just looked like it was trying to bite him in the behind throughout the entirety of that race. He takes 3rd, but far from his normal form. He just didn't really look comfortable all weekend long. A rough day in qualifying. Did very well to push through and have a great start. Gets penalized for having the start that he did, and then claws his way back after serving that 5-second penalty. Awesome stuff from Lando. Fair play to him, but hopefully, and I think he would tell you this too, he's going to need to be better if he wants to challenge for the world title between not just Verstappen, but his teammate Piastri as well. A better performance from Ferrari as well. They're looking a little bit more in sync. Obviously, Leclerc never really looked out of sync, but Lewis Hamilton and his crew are looking like they're seeing eye to eye a little bit more. Good drives from both of them, but don't really have the car strength. And honestly, I'm not going to say the wherewithal, because Hamilton's Hamilton and Leclerc is a multi-time race winner. But they just look like they're a little out of the league of those McLarens right now. A better drive from them, though. Look for a repeat in Jeddah. I'm curious to see how quali goes this upcoming Saturday. And then Mercedes. A suspect penalty on DRS misuse to George Russell. Very, very peculiar. Seems like he was having computer issues all race. They heard him talking about it on the broadcast a little bit. And the story, according to him, was he was just trying to keep control of the computer systems there, and he accidentally opens up DRS in a place where you're not supposed to do that accidentally. I don't know. Seems like the FIA believed him. I'm inclined to do so as well, because, again, he gets the best out of a bad drive. That's the mark of a very good driver. And so he was able to pull that off, get himself a 3rd place finish, and on to the podium. Another good drive from his teammate, Kimi Antonelli, as well. But just kind of weirdness from Russell in that race. And then finally, the defending drivers' champion, Max Verstappen, getting let down by not only a bad car, also some poor pit stops. And honestly, he's just really not communicating well with his team right now. It just doesn't really seem like they're on the same wavelength. He just looked out of sorts all weekend long. And, you know, we found out that on a track like Suzuka, where he does well, he's still got it in him. But this season, I don't know. Something feels different. Doesn't really seem like he's ready to challenge for the title. I could be totally wrong about that. He does like to drive well in Jeddah, has done in the past, won in Jeddah last year, your previous winner. But Piastri, especially after that run at Baku, is looking quite dangerous He was really good in Azerbaijan, and these two tracks kind of profile together, in my view. Again, it's all going to come down to quality, naturally, but Oscar's looking pretty unflappable up to this point, and he's coming on to a track that he likes to win on. Not that he's a track similar to tracks that he likes to win on. So we'll see how it all plays out. Qualifying this Saturday, the race at 11 a.m. Easter Sunday. So that concludes our look at F1 and our look at the scores and standings around all the leagues that we cover for you on ISN. That is going to bring our time together to an end. Thank you very much for the pleasure of your company throughout our time together today, though. Next week, we will be getting back to our regularly scheduled programming. I have an education lesson for MG and for you watching this. If you're not familiar with some of the great names in Japanese baseball, we will rectify that with a legend to add to your repertoire. Someone maybe you can add to your all-time 9 of players. So you can look forward to that next week. And we'll also be reflecting on our respective athletic careers, along with getting a little bit more on hockey, and then wrapping up the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. But that's going to do it for us here on ISR this week on the International Sports Network. Please do like and share this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe and hit the bell icon down below the video screen to be notified every single time a new episode of this show is uploaded, and every time we upload a new video for your viewing pleasure here on the International Sports Network. Let us know down in the comments if McLaren's dominance is a fluke, if we're going to get another race winner this weekend in Jeddah, and tell us maybe about your athletic careers. And if we got a good story, might consider reading it on the show next week. So, for the ever-talented Matthew Giesecke, I have been Marshall Lamert. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. But for now, that's the game.